Hey everyone, I'm Jaden,
And I'm Noah.
and we are the Super Gamer Bros, and this is the Super Gamer Bros podcast. We're just a couple of brothers who love playing games and love talking about games, so that's what we do. So today, Noah, we are talking about the Order 1886.
Did you want me to say something about it?
Yeah,
Okay, so the Order
and
1886
that's
was supposed to be a PlayStation 4 launch title. That's really the biggest thing about it. That's what made it so famous, is it was supposed to come out alongside the PlayStation 4.
yeah.
Unfortunately,
Didn't they showed footage for it
it was a
at,
trailer,
at the
yeah, a gameplay
PS4 press
trailer.
conference, like the PS4 announcement press conference, didn't they?
Yeah, it was kind of a hype
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
Commercially and critically, though, unfortunately, the game was a letdown, and many attributed that to the delays and kind of development hell that it saw between when it was originally supposed to come out and when it was released by Ready at Dawn in 2015. For us, too, this game was even later. We didn't play it until much more recently in the late 20 teens,
I
early
mean, I,
2020s.
yeah, I think I played it in 2020 or 2021, honestly.
Yeah, I can't
It's
remember,
very
but
recent
it
for
was
me.
very recent. And honestly, when a game is like, or something of any media is like trashed a lot by critics, and then commercially as well, it doesn't do well. But then you try it yourself, and sometimes that will put you in a mindset to where the game comes off better because you were expecting it to be so much worse. And this is one of those times for me.
I'll be honest, I really thought you were leading it into saying, and this was not one of those times because this game sucked. I that very much I felt like you were
Yeah,
gonna
no,
do
this
like
game
a,
is
a
not
reversal there.
perfect at all, but I definitely think the idea is here. I think there's some fun gameplay aspects. The
Hmm.
visuals are great. The story is interesting. The voice acting's okay. The writing's okay. Like it's all there. It just needed to all be bumped up another level of quality.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, to take it back to 2012 when this game was first announced, and it very much seemed like it was going to be a launch title, and it was probably, one of the most talked about games from that initial PlayStation 4
Oh
announcement
yeah, it was probably the most
conference.
anticipated launch title.
Yeah, and then it was delayed, and then kind of disappeared. Like once it wasn't a launch title anymore. At least that's how it seemed to me. And then, like you said, we played it way later, and it very much I had the exact same reaction to it you did. That I thought, man, I feel like I thought it was fine. I thought the game was completely fine. Anyway, yeah, that's just kind of our I guess past experience. I don't know, the Order 1886. Anyway, so I'll admit one thing I absolutely loved about the Order 1886 was the world, the setting. So
The lore.
yeah, the Order 1886 is set in an alternate history 1886 London, where an old order of knights keeps the world safe from half-breed monsters, which are a combination of animal and human. That's inaccurate, I
It
think,
is. I
in
would
this
straight up
description.
describe them
Like,
as Lycans.
I mean, they are Lycans. That's what they're called in the game. I've never, like, your Lycans, for anyone who might maybe not know, is basically just like a werewolf. I'd never in my life have considered a werewolf to be a combination of animal and human. To me, it's a completely different thing.
Right, it constitutes more as a transformation.
Yeah. Anyway, in the game's history, around the 7th or 8th century, a small number of humans took on bestial traits. The majority of humans feared these half breeds and war broke out. Despite the humans outnumbering the half breeds, their animal strength gave them the upper hands in centuries of conflict. Humanity finds new hope in King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. King Arthur and his like minded knights take the fight to the half breeds, but Arthur soon realizes it is a losing battle. Through a mysterious turn of fate, the knights discover Blackwater, a mystical liquid that significantly extends their lifetimes and gives them remarkable healing abilities. Despite this new advantage, the half breeds continue to win battle after battle until the Industrial Revolution turns the tide. Engineers are far ahead of their time, inventing technologies such as thermal imaging, railguns, zeppelins, and wireless communications. New weapons belch electricity, ignite clouds of thermite on top of enemies, and fulfill dual functions as fragmentation grenades and proximity mines. Additionally, the events of Jack the Ripper have taken place 2 years earlier.
Random.
I think he's a vampire. I think that's the whole thing.
I feel like that's done in like pretty much every Victorian London vampire thing I've seen. They make Jack the Ripper a vampire.
Yeah,
They
I
might
feel
have
like
done
it's
that
a
in the game,
it's a
literally vampire, but
yeah, it's a requirement.
By the way, do you want me to read this?
Yeah, sure. I did just want to comment though. Yeah, the lore of this game is awesome. I love the steampunk Victorian era style. Really, I mean, the Victorian era of London is just a time period that I really like. I just think it's a cool time period,
It
and
is.
mixing it with the steampunk stuff is, I mean, one of the things that in the Lycans, all of it just to me, gave me like thoughts of like Supernatural, Van Helsing, like all these things that we watched as kids that dealt with all this kind of stuff. So it was like playing that as a video game, and I was super super excited for it.
I did not get that vibe, but that is really cool that you felt that way. And I would love to see a really good AAA Van Helsing game because he was sweet.
There was a Van Helsing game.
It was not good.
Yeah. Anyway, let's just get in with the story.
Oh, but I actually wanted to comment on your
Oh,
comment.
sorry. Go ahead.
I completely agree with you. Steampunk is a genre that I find very fascinating, and it just doesn't come up a lot, especially in games. I've seen very little actual steampunk media. You know what I mean? It's kind of
No,
sad.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, on the top of my head right now, I think I can't name anything other than the order.
One thing,
Uh-huh.
and that is that animated show on Netflix that is oh god, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's about Princess Bean and her one friend who's a demon and her other friend who's an elf.
Disenchantment?
Yes, thank you. And that's actually a really good show.
I didn't know it was steampunk.
They have a season where they go to a steampunk world.
Interesting.
And that's the only thing I can think of.
I know that because it was a PlayStation Plus game, we own a game that is steampunk themed. I don't know what it's called, and I can tell you nothing about it.
It's either like a weird top-down RTS looking thing, or it was like a bad MMO.
Yeah, I don't know. We do own one, but again, the order is really the only thing I can think of at the top of my head. Anyway, yeah, steampunk is cool.
Right. So
Noah, let's get in the story.
During the autumn of 1886, London is plagued by both attacks by half-breeds and an anti-government insurgency. Of course, humans have to mess everything up also. After fighting off rebels in Mayfair, Sir Galahad pursues the survivors into the underground, where he encounters a number of werewolf-like half-breeds known as Lycans. Galahad's mentor, Sir Percival, one of the Order's most veteran knights, suspects that there is a correlation between the two and requests permission to investigate the rebel stronghold of Whitechapel. That is a correlation between the Lycans and the anti-government insurgency. His concerns are dismissed by the Lord Chancellor, who believes that the Order should remain dedicated to fighting half-breeds. That's what they've been doing. That's what they should stay doing. With tactic, what is this supposed to be?
Tacit.
That I don't even know what that means. What does that mean?
I'll tell you exactly what it means in 5 seconds.
Okay. So, with approval from Sir Lucan, the Order's Knight Commander and adopted son of the Lord Chancellor, Percival and Galahad undertake a mission into Whitechapel, accompanied by the other two members of their team, Lady Igraine and the Marquis de Lafayette. After encountering fierce resistance, they reach the rebel headquarters in the abandoned Royal London Hospital to find it occupied by Lycans. Galahad and Igraine discover evidence of a rebel plot to infiltrate the Agamemnon flagship of the United India Company's airship fleet and assassinate the company chairman, Lord Hastings, a frequent guest to the Round Table. The team boards the airship and foils the assassination attempt before a bomb detonates on board. Hastings and most of the passengers are evacuated, but Galahad and Percival remain on board to search for the rebel leader. A second explosion sends the Agamemnon crashing into Hyde Park, destroying the Crystal Palace in the process. Galahad survives, but discovers that Percival has been killed.
Pause.
Yeah.
Tacit means understood or implied without being stated.
Cool. Yeah, so, oh yeah, I did want to mention here, a lot of characters introduced, the roundtable characters, and they all have pretty decent, different personalities, and I like them. Like, Lafayette, I think you spend like most of your time with Lafayette, honestly, and he might be my favorite.
I very much got the vibe of, man, I don't know, it's like that team, like focus story, kind of like the best I can think of right now is like Naruto, where they have like their team 7 and it's focused on the 3 of them, which I mean I like those stories. I guess I prefer stories that have more of like a main group of characters versus a single main character, but also like, again, I prefer a small group compared to, say, Game of Thrones, where there are dozens and dozens of major characters. You know what I mean?
True, I do. But that being said, in this game, you play as the same character the whole way through, right?
Well, yeah, but he's always like, you're always working with you have your team. I think he does get
true,
separated, but for at least a portion of it, you are with your team, and I like that. Anyway, you can go ahead and continue.
All right, so in council at the Palace of Westminster, Lafayette is knighted and assumes Percival's seat at the round table. Right, there are no empty seats here at the table for very long. The Lord Chancellor is highly critical of the mission, asserting that Percival's death and the extensive collateral damage were in vain. The council is interrupted when rebels stage a major attack on Westminster Bridge aimed at killing Hastings, who is saved by the knights. Enraged by Percival's death, Galahad returns to Whitechapel seeking a confrontation with the rebel leader, who is revealed to be an Indian woman named Lakshmi, who is later revealed to be the hitherto presumed dead queen Lakshmibai of Jhansi of the princely state of Jhansi in the Indian subcontinent. Levels. A double reveal. Pleading with Galahad pleading with Galahad that the United India Company is the true enemy, she leads him to the company's warehouses in Blackwall, where they discover a large number of hibernating vampires packed in crates bound for the northeastern United States. According to Lakshmi, Lord Hastings is a vampire, known to the general public as Jack the Ripper, and is acting in response to the Order's recent success. Yeah, so there's a lot going on here when they introduce this.
Yeah, the story gets really complicated really fast.
Yeah, it does. But I actually kept up with it. I understood that there were these vampires in these crates and we had to stop them from being sent, and that Hastings was actually a vampire, The reveal was pretty cool, actually, right? Like I said, visually, this game is like really cool. If you just didn't like how it felt, I would still suggest watching a playthrough of it just because it is so beautiful and the story is not bad. So anyway, at Westminster, Galahad's concerns fall on deaf ears. Lucan sympathizes with him, however, and joins Galahad and Lakshmi in infiltrating the United India Company headquarters in Mayfair. They find evidence of a conspiracy to traffic half-breeds overseas and encounter Hastings in his vampire form. Before Galahad can act against Hastings, Lucan reveals himself to be a Lycan and attacks Galahad. The two fight, but Lucan flees as the authorities arrive. Galahad is taken into custody by Lafayette and Igraine, charged with treason and sentenced to death. We didn't mention this, but the game actually begins with Galahad in a cell.
Oh man, I completely forgot about that. It totally does.
Yeah. So it's one of those where he starts out in a cell and it's like, I bet you're wondering how I got in here. Well, I'll tell you all about it. It was one of those. And I really don't love those.
No, it very cliche.
It is so cliche.
And also, I mean, it's cliche of like the starting in like the present and going back in the past, and also a little cliche just the whole, it's the Dishonored story. respected member of the Knights that is falsely charged with treason and arrested.
Right. It is classic. I was gonna say my favorite plot device as an intro. There's a narrative phrase for it. I can't remember what it is, but it's when you start your story in the middle of action. So, like at the beginning of the story, there's a war or something. Like it starts out really intensely, and then it becomes calm, and you build back up to that. That's what I like.
You're saying like starting in like a big battle,
Yeah,
and then like it's like maybe it doesn't go back in time, but then it's like the aftermath of that battle, and it's kind of there you're introduced to the characters, and the story starts to flow.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Right, we just jump in to these characters' lives at this battle.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, after several weeks, Galahad escapes captivity in the Westminster catacombs and attempts to flee only to be cornered. Facing re-imprisonment, Galahad throws himself off a ledge into the River Thames and is recovered by Nikola Tesla, the Order's armorer, with help from an old man. Tesla seeks help from Lakshmi to help take care of Galahad. Lakshmi reveals to Galahad, upon being questioned about her having Blackwater, that she was bestowed a knighthood by Sir Bors de Ganis. Fearing that Tesla has come under suspicion, Galahad returns to Westminster in an attempt to extract him. He finds Tesla alive, but also encounters Lucan in the laboratory. The two fight a second time, with Galahad emerging the victor. The mortally wounded Lucan expresses regret for having betrayed the Order, claiming that he did so in order to save his race from extinction. The two are discovered by the Lord Chancellor, who confesses his knowledge of Lucan's true nature. He reveals to Galahad that centuries before he had fought and destroyed an entire tribe of Lycans, but could not bring himself to kill the infant Lucan, who he adopted as a son instead. The Lord Chancellor orders that evidence of Lucan's betrayal may not be used to exonerate Galahad and must be kept a secret for the sake of the Order. Unwilling to kill his son, he leaves Galahad to administer the coup de grace, then banishes the Galahad from London. The two former comrades reconcile, and a remorseful Galahad raises his weapon and fires, killing Lucan as the screen cuts to black. In a post-credit scene, Galahad is seen on the roof of a building overlooking London, which has been put under martial law. He is warned by Tesla over the radio that the police could strike any time and that they should leave the city immediately. Galahad reminds Tesla that he is Galahad no more.
And that's the story. I really enjoyed it. Again, kind of as we have had just said, it's a very cliche story. I feel like I feel the most intrigue, I guess, from the story comes from just the lore and the just like the Lycans and the
I like the
steampunk aspect of the
the
time period. I
history of
feel
the
like
Order and the
I feel like
collection.
I feel like the lore is what makes it. The story itself is very, again, it's just cliche. Like if this was like a modern day if this like same type of story was told modern day, there's really nothing stand out about it, but the supernatural and steampunk science aspect of it is really what I think pushes it into being, good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but it's a good first step that creates this IP and has a good story. The ending is not so great. It's really a non-ending, and that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean it did the cardinal sin of first games, which was ending on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, setting up for a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
You never set up for a sequel you might not get, because then your finished product looks worse in the end.
Yeah, like at least second game to set up cliffhangers, because I mean it's like you said, because one, I feel like there's a sort of as you said, negatively affecting a game. There's like a sort of, I feel like, assumed pretentiousness to it, of like, oh, this is your first game in this IP, and you just think it's going to be so good that everyone's going to want a sequel. Yeah, kind of a pretentiousness to it, I feel. And also it's just like any game should exist, I feel, at really any story should be able to stand on its own as its own story, and I will always hold it against something like a piece of fiction if it cannot do that. So that is, you know, obviously a negative I have for the Order is that it doesn't. It very much feels like an incomplete story, and that yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
And
it's
of course,
super unfortunate because it was a fun story.
and I mean, I don't think a sequel is ever going to happen to this one. Anyway,
I mean, never say never at this point.
I mean, I suppose so. It's very, very unlikely. I would be shocked. I mean, I would be like the top of the list of people who would be like, "Man, I didn't expect that." But yeah, cool, I'll play it. You know, that would be my reaction. Anyway, so now let's get into the gameplay. So the Order 1886 is a third-person shooter, and combat revolves around using cover and maneuvering around a kind of open area while fighting enemies. You know, I mean, it's a typical third-person shooter thing. You have kind of this open area with a bunch of different places to take cover. You maneuver around, enemies maneuver around, and you know you have to take them down.
See, the problem you have with the story is the problem I had with the gameplay, and that it's pretty basic cookie cutter third person shooter. There's nothing special other than the weapons, which we'll get to.
Enemies do include both humans and half-breeds, and stealth is also used occasionally. It is very occasional. You know, obviously there are silent takedowns, and melee is always, I mean, sort of there. It's not really. I would say like you can't just run up and it's. I don't know what's a game you can compare it to where
Yeah, it's kind of
you
like
run up
The
and there's
Last
just
of
a
Us,
takedown.
or
No,
not The Last of
that's
Us,
too
maybe
much.
like Nathan Drake early
No,
ones.
that's still too much.
Oh damn.
It's I guess hypothetically imagine it in sort of Call of Duty when you knife somebody. It's like you have a melee button that is like a one hit kill if you run up to somebody and hit it, but you don't have like an actual fist fight combat system
That makes sense to me.
for the most part.
Right.
And then you also have this thing sort of important to talk about called black sight. You know, you get it from the Blackwater or whatever. It is basically a less cool version of that thing from Fallout. Noah, is it called VATS?
It is called VETS. I don't know what it stands
Yeah, I
for.
got it. It does
VETS,
stand for
I
something.
think, is my favorite way it's ever been done, but the second example you have is good too.
Yes, also Deadeye from Red Dead Redemption. It might also be in Red Dead Revolver. I don't know. I never played that one. Yeah, so it's basically those two things. I would say it's kind of a combination of the two, but it's less cool because you can only switch between the person you're targeting. And, you know, it's sort of like the reason it gets the VATS comparison is you shoot at body parts, like, you know, the aim will be at the person's chest or their arm, their leg. It will aim at specific body parts. But unlike VATS, you can't pick which part to aim at. The game just does it automatically and you just have to shoot. And honestly, it's pretty funny to watch because if you see someone use black sight and aim at a person and say they aim at their chest, they'll shoot them and then the person will like start spinning because like, you know, they got hit or whatever. Like they'll start falling and their arms will flail forward and then it'll target one of their arms. Then you hit their arm and like they spin around because you hit their arm and then, you know, suddenly you can hit their back or whatever. It's just, I guess it's kind of comical to watch, but overall there's not really a purpose to using it because of the fact that you can't decide what you're aiming at.
Yeah, mechanically, it's not that great.
Yeah.
You're better
like,
off just shooting yourself.
like I used it to get trophies and that's it. I didn't because it's, I mean, useless. You literally are taking the aiming out of a shooting game when you do that. And yeah, that's it.
Weapons?
Weapons. So there are a variety of cool steampunk weapons that being the standout part of this game to me. Anyway, so one thing I admit I do not like about the Order 1886, really it's two things in regards to the weapon. The first thing is you can carry one primary gun and one sidearm at a time. For the 7 primary weapons and 5 sidearms, really more regarding the primary weapons. Oh, sorry, 8 primary weapons. They're all cool, and I would like to be able to carry more than one.
Yeah, I also had that issue. Really, I always feel like you should be able to use every weapon you have, like a weapon wheel, but that's just me. Did you want to talk about some of the weapons?
Yeah, so the guns. For starters, the primary guns, there's the M86 FL thermite rifle. It's an LMG that burns through cover and can fire a magnesium shot that is highly flammable. The magazine can act as an explosive if placed and ignited. The TS-21 arc induction lance, an experimental Tesla coil that shoots a focused stream of electricity. The M21 Falchion auto rifle that has two distinct barrels, one for shooting bullets and the second for a powerful but non-lethal blast of air. The M84 marksman carbine, it's a sniper. Probably my favorite gun in the game, the 3-crown coach gun, a triple-barreled shotgun that fires 3 slugs at the same time. The M82 self-loaded carbine, a semi-automatic rifle used by Knights of the Order, the British Army, and the Rebels. The M85 Automatic, a semi-fully automatic SMG used by Sir Galahad. And there's a crossbow. Yeah.
Most of them are pretty good.
Most of them
I like
are good.
The electric one, the thermite one is
Yeah,
pretty
the
good
induction
too.
lance, the thermite rifle.
And even the basic one is really cool looking.
I mean, they're all really, really cool. Yeah, I loved all of them. As I said, I love the 3-crown coach gun, the triple barrel shotgun. I just loved how it looked. It just looked awesome. If I remember correctly, it's just like 3 barrels in a triangle.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it looks comical. Like, but and then when I'm not playing online in shooting games, I love using shotguns. I love it. I love blowing people away, blowing off limbs, in games that happens. I love shotguns.
I get that, but I wanted more of a scientific weapon, so I stuck with the Tesla coil with the electricity.
Oh no, I get you.
All of the
Anyway.
secondaries though are pretty basic, you know? They go
No, they're all very similar feeling.
right, exactly.
Like I mean, they're all pistols. I mean, there is the machine pistol, which is a machine pistol, so fully automatic. There is the Dragoon revolver. Oh, the Duelist revolver, which is kind of like the 3-crown coach gun, where it's double barrel and it shoots 2 bullets at once, powerful at short range. It's basically your pistol version of shotgun. And then just the MK1 service revolver. It's just a standard revolver. It's they're all very similar, to the point where I didn't really care which pistol I was holding. It was mainly the
I
main
also
weapon
thought they
that is
weren't
the
that
draw.
great.
You're correct. Pistol, it's I mean, something that I think is true in pretty much any shooting game. Unless you're someone who can get headshot after headshot, pistols are not really useful at all.
What about people who can press R2 really fast?
I mean, I guess.
Do that. Be like bam, 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 right into somebody's chest.
I mean, that works in some games. It depends, I guess, on how realistic the developers decide to be. Because there are games, I have played where even like body shots, it'll take 5+ shots to kill someone with a pistol. And at that point, what's the point?
I completely agree. At that point, it's like you're using a BB gun.
Yeah, pretty much.
So those are the weapons.
Yeah, those are the weapons. Again, the main weapons are very cool. On it, in terms of, I don't like that you can only have one of each type of weapon. My biggest complaint about the guns is I have never played a shooting game, a shooting game, where I have run out of ammo so many times and ammo drops basically don't exist.
I feel like I did not have that issue as much, but I did have it a lot, like way more than you should in a shooting game that's not like The Last of Us.
Yeah, because in a shooting game like, say Call of Duty, one, you're usually you can just carry enough ammo that in a campaign mission in Call of Duty, you have to like try to run out of ammo pretty much. At least in all of the Call of Duties I've played. I haven't played any one past Advanced Warfare, so I guess maybe that's an issue that has happened since, but I can't comment. And then if you do run out of ammo, all the enemies you fight are from the same army, so typically they have the same standard issue weapons. So if you pick up one enemy weapon like a submachine gun, you're going to find ammo for that all around because a bunch of other enemies are using it too. The Order 1886, I did not experience that. It's like all the enemies use different weapons, or you just can't pick up ammo from them. I honestly don't remember, but and then your weapon that you start out with, you just run out of ammo so quickly. I have never had that experience before of I'm like, well, crap, I don't have ammo. Like my pistol has 5 bullets in it. My main weapon is out and I'm running around trying to find a weapon. And then I pick up, a rifle that an enemy dropped and it only has like 15 bullets. I was just not happy about that.
Yeah, that's just one of the issues.
Anyway, that's just, I small, I guess, sort of big thing I had with the Order. Anyway, so the Order is a very story-driven, linear narrative. There's not really any sort of exploration. It's a third-person shooter. There's no really jumping or anything. You can vault over cover, I guess. And there are sort of open locations, pretty much, with being a third-person shooter. Any combat area is going to be more open, so you can, run around with different covers and stuff like that. But yeah, there's not really a lot of exploration here. It's very minimal. There are collectibles, which is semi off the beaten path, but you're not gonna it's not a game you'll be able to openly explore. Which honestly, I mean, I know why they didn't do that, but I think having a sort of I feel like I would have appreciated more open missions just because I really loved just how the map looked, how the city looked, and I would have loved to be able to see more of it.
Yeah, you're right. It was really cool, and even the length of the game, it was a little short. I would have loved to have seen more of the city, like every building they introduced, the hospital, the prison, the building where the round table is. All of it was different and just really fascinating.
Anyway, yeah, I guess we're both just history guys, huh?
Well, I don't know. The era of Victorian London is very romanticized at this point. I
Mhm.
did watch the Peaky Blinders a little while ago. You know,
Anyway, that brings us to our additional gameplay mechanics. So there is not a lot to the Order 1886. I mean, that was a big complaint when the game came out, and when I played it, that's something that I was like, yeah, there's not a lot going on here. So there are quick time events. They're I mean, they're quick time events. They're used enough in this game that I feel the need to mention that they're there. They're not like so rare that I, forget about them, but they're not I feel like they're not overused. But yeah, I mean, they exist. They're a decent part of the game. I think really it goes into how the game really tries to be a more narrative focused experience.
yeah, I completely agree. I don't have a huge problem with these quick time events because they are shorter, really,
Hmm.
and they're quicker. I think that's my biggest problem with quick time events is they kind of take away from the immersion a lot because they have to pause for you to be like, oh, that's the button and press it. And a lot of times when you're watching a Telltale game or I mean playing one like The Wolf Among Us, when you're making decisions about where to throw an enemy in a fight, there's that second where they're both just standing there while you're deciding, and that like really throws me off.
Yeah, they're quick time events. Yeah, they're fine. I love quick time events. And then the boss fights. So I'm pretty sure, really only two boss fights in the Order 1886. The reason the boss fights get their own little category here is they're different from the rest of the game. I mean, that's it.
The rest of the enemies.
Just the rest of the game. It's not even like just it's so the boss fights are both against Lucan in his kind of lycanthrope form. And the boss fights are a combination of cinematics, quick time events, and simple melee combat. You have so basically the way it works is it's kind of like imagine, I guess, boxing, where you have these two guys that are like walking around each other in a circle. That's kind of how the movement is in the fight. Like you can, move left and move right, but you're always kind of circling around the enemy. You're kind of like locked on. It's not like a free roaming kind of affair in any regard. You have a light, like he uses like machete as his weapon. That's again melee combat when you're just playing through the levels is not really a thing. You have melee takedowns, but I don't think you can just run around slicing people with a machete. Maybe I'm remembering the game wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's not a thing. You have light heavy attack, and then the dodging takes takes place in the form of quick time events. Like it'll flash on the screen like, oh, push the right stick left and you'll dodge an attack. And again, the fights are very cinematic. Like anytime you attack, it's like a 5 second to 10 second little
Attack
cutscene.
animation.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
like you attack him, like the camera changes, and like you stab him, he reacts, he like throws you off, whatever. And when you dodge his attacks, it's again like when you press that quick time event, it becomes a little short cinematic that you have to watch before regaining control of your character. If you don't dodge, like he will bite you, and then again, it's all cinematic of fighting him off and then being back in that same basic boxing match style lock. Again, it happens twice. It's the exact same boss fight twice because it's literally it's you can't even say it's against two different people. It's literally the same guy, and it's done the exact same way both times. It is certainly a complaint I know a lot of people had about the game was the shitty boss fight, and I mean that's something that I absolutely agree with. It's if you're looking at it from a simply cinematic perspective, it is very cinematic. I thought that was cool. I actually did like how every like hit you land, every hit you dodge, if he hits you. I liked that short cinematic that played because
It
it made
made
me
it
feel
feel
like
impactful.
yeah, yeah, it wasn't like, most games where you fight where you're just hitting him and he reacts and yeah, like it was a very cinematic fight, which is not something that I have experienced a lot in any game I've played. I liked that aspect of it. I like that they were being very cinematic with it, but it's super basic. The fact that they literally do the same thing twice, I understand why people don't like it. I wish there was more to it. And again, it has nothing to do with the rest of the game. Like you never do this in any level just normally. It's a third person shooter and then a boxing simulator for these two fights.
Yeah, I wanted to mention also here, the method of battling Lycans themselves is pretty lackluster as like you're just standing in an open area and then Lycans will one at a time charge at you from a specific side of a room and they just come at you in a straight line until you blast them enough and they're down.
Yeah, really, I guess this is a good spot to mention that. I would say in terms of one of my bigger complaints for the game is the fact that Lycans are not a big focus, really. Like, yeah, I guess the final boss is a lycanthrope, and he sort of is protecting other lycanthropes, but a majority of your combat is against just people. Again, for what this game was shown off initially, and what I, expected from it, I was surprised by how little you actually do fighting against Lycans and vampires and stuff. It was very lackluster in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a fair complaint.
Hmm.
Now to your favorite part.
Now to my favorite part. So the collectibles. There's over 100. I don't know the exact number, and there are a lot of different types, which I guess is cool. I guess it depends on what you think of your collectibles. I do like the collectibles in the Order 1886 for the most part. A lot of them are just lore building, and the lore of this game is the best part of this game. So obviously, those collectibles are really cool. First, there are, I guess, look at the boring stuff out of the way. There are 10 objects, which are objects. You literally find them and you look at them. Like, for example, a flask. If you want to talk Easter, what was that clap?
That was me clapping when you said you could look at them
Yeah,
random objects.
yeah, that's it. Well, it's like, for example, there's a flask. There's, I guess, yeah, you want to talk Easter eggs. There's a little stuffed doll that looks like Sackboy from Little Big Planet. I,
Did we
one thing I,
mention is this a PS exclusive?
yes, it is. It is a PlayStation 4 exclusive. We did not mention that. If I guess I did not answer your question. We did not mention that. Hey guys, this is a PS4 exclusive. Anyway, yeah. One thing I don't like about collectibles in the order is when you are in a mission, it does not track your collectibles. Like it gives no indication that you've even have picked up a collectible. You for the objects, you pick something up, you can turn it in your hand using the right stick. That's cool, I guess. And then you put it down, and you walk away. There is no indication during gameplay that you have collected
Yeah, I
something.
actually had no idea that that was collecting a collectible. I thought you were just
Hmm.
looking at random things in the world.
Yep. Hmm. And then there are items, very different from objects. This is random stuff that you interact with. You don't pick it up. Typically, you just look at it. Example of this is at one point you're in, as you said, a hospital. There's like a door that has like one of those metal latches that you can like open to like look into a cell. It's like a cell, I guess. And you walk up to it and you interact with it and you open it, you look into it, and then he closes it. Collectible, done. There's also like you find a
Same.
dead body and like inspecting the dead body. That's what items are. It's again weird. And again, there's no indication that these are even collectibles. So if you're playing this game without a collectibles guide, you'd have no idea. And then we get to the cool stuff. There's photographs. They're cool. I guess I like photographs. You can flip them over and there might be something written on the back. Whatever. And then to our lore building, there are documents and newspapers. So newspapers, obviously, they give you little stories, background info on what's kind of been going on recently. Very cool in terms of like, it's like day-to-day world building, not something you see too much in video game collectibles. And then documents, which, yeah, I mean, they're documents. They add to the lore. They're more, like reports, things like that, that give you again kind of further detail on the world you're in. And then my favorite, phonograph cylinders. If anyone does not know what a phonograph cylinder is, Google it. And these are audio files, basically. And I love it. I love probably my favorite type of collectibles in games are audio files like this because I don't have to read anything. So it doesn't like disrupt gameplay to read, say, like a document or a newspaper. And it's just someone, obviously talking, giving notes on something, whatever that you listen to as you're playing through the game. And I like that.
Me too.
Yeah, again, it's more world building, more lore, and
For me, it goes
but you don't
back
have to
to
read.
the Arkhams.
Oh yes, the interview tapes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree. Also, if talking about audio stuff, The Last of Us has a small percentage of their collectibles are audio recordings, but I do love those. Again, I think it's more immersive than just finding a document and reading it. So yeah, that's cool. And yeah, I mean those are the collectibles. Probably my biggest complaint about collectibles is that the game obviously there is like a chapter select whatever, but the game does not give you any indication that you're collecting anything for I don't know why. Honestly, if I had to guess, I would say they didn't want anything popping up to break the immersion of the game. Because again, I think immersion is what they're going for here, and I can respect that. But maybe just like I'm gonna just have a bell ring or something. You could do something very minimal to indicate a collectible has been gathered. No,
Oh
no,
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I know video game collectible expert Noah here to tell us his expert opinion.
yep. I mean, I collect this stuff and never look at it, so I don't even know why I do it because never collect it all.
It's just that completionist in you.
But I don't complete it half the time.
Well,
Like
I
I've
mean,
been
it's just
playing
getting
Control
it
and I'm
getting it
picking up
as,
all the documents, and I'm like, I'm not gonna read them, and I'm not gonna get the platinum trophy in Control, so I don't know why I'm doing it.
but you
But
could.
every room I go around looking for them.
Anyway, now I move on to our notable trophies. Not really any, because as stated previously with games like, yeah, what's that game, Noah? Horizon Zero Dawn is now my poster child for these types of games. But it's the very standard trophy list, like kill this many enemies with this weapon, kill this many enemies at one time. It's beat the story. There's nothing really standout here. Oh, there is one I wanted to point out other than, well, first off, there's the Grail, which is the platinum trophy is called the Grail. I like it. I think it's a cool name. It's a cool trophy picture because it's like the Holy Grail and you're a knight of the round table, so I just love it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yep. And then a trophy that I feel like deserves mentioning is the Marksman. Kill 5 enemies with a headshot during Black Sight. And obviously, that trophy is stupid because, again, you don't control which body part you're
That is
aiming at.
hilarious.
So you have to shoot at the same guy until you aim at his head and then kill him. Yeah, it's just it's just dumb for that reason. That's it. That's the only reason it is notable is because of the fact that you can't aim at a specific body part. So you just keep shooting until you hit his head.
Right.
Yeah,
So
basic list. Anyway, sorry, no, I just completely interrupted you. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, so my favorite moment
Oh yes,
of the
our
Order
yep.
1886 was
Sorry,
actually,
our questions. Noah, favorite moment. Noah,
I'm sorry,
Noah, what's
I
your
felt
favorite
like
moment?
that didn't need to be said, but uh
Well, just let me just okay. We just for consistency. Just let me ask Noah. What was your favorite moment?
the airship level.
Okay, I feel like you were really heading in there like you had something on your mind, and you really just kind of petered out.
Yeah, no, it was definitely the airship level. I liked it because we were in the air.
I I can't tell if
Okay, well,
okay.
I liked it because the airship was going down and you can't have a Zeppelin in any media without it going down at some point. As a sick callback, by the way, but
People
I'm here
died,
for it.
Noah.
People did die.
Yeah,
Well, why would you fill a giant balloon with helium or hydrogen, Jaden? Why did they do that?
fly it.
Like didn't they know at that point that hydrogen was flammable?
I'm sure they did. Anyway, well, let me tell you, if they didn't, they found out. Yes, I won't say Noah stole what I already have written down here, but my favorite one is also the airship level, the Agamemnon. One, I just liked it because yeah, it's like a very fancy airship. It's a very cool interior. There's kind of like a museum-y part of it, so you see all these like displays of stuff, and you destroy them while shooting at people, and people shoot at you. And then also you're actually at times you're out in the actual like just in the open air on the outside of this airship as you're fighting enemies and trying to keep it from crashing, and then eventually it crashes anyway. It's just a really cool level. I guess take it from my less experience with airships than with buildings. It was just it was very unique. I felt like fighting on a zeppelin.
Yeah,
Anyway, no, any miscellaneous things you liked about the Order 1886?
I did really enjoy the characters. Like Galahad and like I said, Lafayette was probably my favorite. But I just thought everybody was done really well, had a good personality, good voice acting, well written lines. Yeah, I just liked it overall.
I agree with you. The characters are cool. I did enjoy the characters, the acting itself as well. It was all good. It was all good. My favorite thing, it's a pretty game. It is a really, I mean, initially supposed to be a launch title, came out in 2015. 5 years before The Last of Us Part Two, and it still, I think, can compete as being the best looking game on PlayStation 4. It is a really good looking game.
Yeah, it is quite beautiful. And that's saying a lot because the setting is so like dim and dreary. It's like gray all the time,
Oh,
and
you're
the
absolutely
story
correct.
looks
Yeah.
nasty, but it's just so well animated.
Yeah, and I give them props for the cutscenes look exactly the same as the in-game graphics. Not a lot of games do that, and I appreciate them for doing it. Did very good job with that. Like I'll always give props for that.
Yeah. I feel
Anyway,
like it was something that's like back in the day you just had worse graphics and gameplay because that's how it was.
hmm
But nowadays, you can have the same graphics to gameplay visuals like The Last of Us 2 did pretty well.
I mean, but it was still better in cutscenes.
You thought so?
Oh yeah, especially if it's something that people don't typically think to do because why would you? But it's something that I do anytime I play a third person game that allows me to. I always rotate the right stick to see what the character looks like when they're talking in gameplay because typically, you're always looking at their back, especially if you're not in a moment of combat where you might be rotating the camera around trying to look for enemies when you're Ellie and Dina riding a horse in Seattle and there's no enemies around. Obviously, why would you turn the camera? You're not, there's not really a purpose to it. But I love doing that to see characters talking because it's really funny how not in sync and not great it looks. But again, why put time into that? Because 99% of people are not going to rotate the camera to see what the characters' faces look like when they're talking.
Yeah, true. I never care about it.
Um, exactly. And why put money towards that when like it's one of those things that if I see a game has actually put time into that, I think, hey, that's cool. They put time into that. Could have done something else with that time. But
Right? Could have made the game better.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I remember a video I watched a few weeks ago talking about like insane details in games. Talking about, I think like in The Last of Us Part Two, the character's pupils actually dilate and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I guess that's cool, but why? Like that game was delayed for 6 months or something like that, or I think 4 months. The Last of Us Part Two was, and I assumed that pupils dilating was part of that 4 months. And why? Because nobody's going to notice that unless they're specifically looking for it.
I mean, I'm not
Um,
gonna presume to know how to understand how games are made
I mean,
completely.
I don't either, but again, that's something that I feel like people want games to be more realistic, but I feel like there's a limit to that of going from being cool to being impractical.
Right.
Like, I mean, you want to use one of the best examples, the uh, horse testicles in Red Dead 2. They make them
Red
shrink
Dead
in the
2 was gonna be my great example of that.
yeah, like they made the horse testicle shrink, and it's like, yeah, I guess that's realistic, but you telling me that at least one, if not a decent number of people spent probably a ridiculous amount of hours working on getting that to work when they could have used those hours towards something actually productive and useful in the overall creation of the game. That's where I'm like, again, like there's a limit,
Right.
Anyway, talk about what we did like about the game. I mentioned mine already, both the boss battles just being and then the cliffhanger ending. As again, we said, cardinal sin of first game or first part of any new IP. Don't presume people are going to like it enough for a sequel. Don't leave it open ended.
Absolutely. I did not like the fact that it was so linear and tight, and for me, it was also a little bit short. And I thought the combat was not so great. Like, I would find myself dying a lot and getting frustrated with it. And I'm like, I just want to play through this game because the story is okay. And, I like the characters and it looks cool. But the gameplay was just such a trudge. It reminds me of the Guardians of the Galaxy game that came out within the last year. I tried to play it, but the gameplay is so bad. The story and the writing and the voice acting, it's all fantastic, but the gameplay is just so bad.
I gotcha. No, I get you. I completely understand that. I don't think I had nearly as much issues with those things as you did, but it's a complaint most people had playing the game, and if I wasn't so easy to please, I would understand it. Anyway, replayability. This is a beat and delete. It is definitely the shortest, I think, by far, beat and delete game we have. And typically, having a shorter length helps a game in replayability because a game that takes 5 hours to beat is a lot less of a daunting task if I think about replaying it versus a game that takes 100 hours to beat. But I see no reason going back to this because it's I mean, as you said, it's not like the best third person shooter. It is, if I wanted to have a good third person shooter experience, there are many games I could go to above this one that I would.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a beat and delete also. I wouldn't play it again. And that's typically what happens, I've said in the past, with these very linear story games, because there's no wiggle room for what you're going to see. You've already seen it all.
Anyway, no, final thoughts on the Order 1886.
For a cheap price, I think it's a really fun, short gaming experience. You might be able to testify that I think it's an easy platinum. And it is kind of a trudge, but it's not awful. It's not the worst game I've ever played. And it is beautiful, just gorgeous.
Yeah, my final thoughts. It is an easy platinum. I think it took me maybe 10 hours to platinum. That might even be a little generous because I did not time it exactly. I think that the Order 1886 is the very definition of the word fine. It is fine. The gameplay is fine. The story is fine. Everything about it, with the exception of, I think, the lore and the visuals, I think are both incredible, stellar. But the gameplay, the story, they're fine. It's not the best at all, certainly not the best, but it's also certainly not the worst. It is short. The game actually ended up being longer than I was expecting because of how many complaints I heard about how short it was. But I honestly would leave this game with I would recommend anyone play it. And a big thing, when the game first came out, it was $60. I paid maybe $10 for it, and I thought it was well worth $10. So I think, especially if this is a game that you have not played and you have $10, I think it's a pretty good $10 game. And I think it's something I saw online, an opinion someone had that I completely agree with, that the game would have been much better received if it had actually released as a launch title, helped out by I think that the PlayStation 4's launch library was very weak. But this is a game that you buy to showcase how cool the PS4 is with the cinematics, the visuals, the acting, the gameplay, whatever. But by the time it came out in 2015, there were other games that did that just as good. So it lost a lot of its luster.
Right, so that's the Order 1886.
Right. That is the Order 1886.
So now we're going to move on to the indie bit, the bit where we talk about indie games.
Yay!
Today we are talking about Hades. So it is a game developed by, I believe, Supergiant.
That is correct. Supergiant. We've talked
Yay!
about them before.
Yep, we have talked about Transistor in the past, which was another game that was kind of a sleeper. I thought I kind of felt the same way about Transistor I do about Hades, which is I went in expecting to really hate it, but came out liking it. You know, everybody talked up these games. Transistor was pretty hype when it came out, but Hades even more so. I mean, if I remember correctly, wasn't it a contender for Game of the Year?
Yep, it was nominated Game of the Year 2020, lost out to The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, I mean, it lives up to that to me. It is a fantastic game. It does feel a lot like Transistor in terms of the gameplay, where you're like, it just doesn't have the grid on the floor, but it's basically the same design maps. And you have the 4 different forms of attack, one of them being a dash, a basic attack, a range, and one called a cast that's a special depending on the weapon you're using. Anyway, you play as Zagreus, who is the son of Hades, so he is the prince of the underworld. And he is fed up with living in the underworld and wants to escape. So to escape Hades, he has to go through basically backwards through hell. He starts in Tartarus and goes to Asphodel and then to is it called Elysium?
No,
No?
I'm totally
I
blanking
can't
here.
remember what that one's called. But it's something like that, and it's where basically all the heroes and the good humans go after they die in Greek
Oh,
mythology.
no, that is Elysium.
Oh, yeah, so yeah, it is. Elysium is after Asphodel, if you did not know that. So yeah, he goes through these different areas in an attempt to escape hell. And along the way, he comes across different, basically like entities of Hades, like minor gods and deities and heroes that Hades sends to stop Zagreus from escaping. So the whole game plays out like every time Zagreus dies, he ends up back in the house of Hades, and you talk to everybody there and learn a little bit more about them, and that's how the story progresses. As you go, you obtain more weapons and consumables and resources in order to level up Zagreus, unlock more weapons, unlock more skills, buy things, obtain keepsakes from friends that Zagreus has in Hades. So the game itself is played like room to room escape system where you have it's basically like a survival where you're going off of one health bar and each room's reward is shown to you before you enter it. So you can get anything from resources, a key, to a boon from a god of Olympus. So the gods of Olympus, you know, being Zeus, Poseidon, Hermes, Aphrodite, you know, etc. They will basically send Zagreus help because they think it's admirable he's trying to escape to Mount Olympus. And they'll basically give you some kind of gameplay ability depending on the weapon you have that will make you stronger. These builds you can make with the gods can make you really, really strong, and that's how you escape alongside basically like grinding for resources and leveling up Zagreus. I love this game. I have a huge affection towards Greek mythology, and this game
just gives me all the fan service I could ever need for that. The House of Hades, the Underworld Gods, they're all very interesting. And this game is also artistic. The music is great and it just looks beautiful. Jaden, do you like this game?
I also really, really like this game. Anyone who has ever listened to one of the many episodes, at least a significant number of our episodes that focus on any sort of mythology. We both love mythology, any type of pantheon, but Greek is our favorite. And so I knew going in I was probably going to like this game because I did like Transistor and I love Greek mythology. And I think, I mean, this is really one of my favorite adaptations of Greek mythology. As you said, with the boons, seeing all the boons and seeing the gods, like one, as you said, like artistic, very unique, I feel like, takes on many of the gods and figures. I just love the art, the sort of anime style, cartoony art of them. And I mean that's all the beginning, before you even actually play the game. The combat is similar to Transistor, but I think the combat is better because Transistor had its whole like energy system, and you could run out of energy, and you literally wouldn't be able to attack for a period of time while it built up. That's not a thing in Hades. Thank God, because that was probably my biggest complaint about Transistor, and it's not here. You can attack all you want, and everything about this game just works. It all just works, and it works together so well. We previously, this game is procedurally generated, and previously, I think the only procedurally generated game we talked about was we did an indie bit on the Persistence, and I don't like procedurally generated games. I very much prefer games where you
It's all set in stone.
yeah, it's also so you can learn patterns and get better that way. With most procedural generation, I feel like there is an element of luck, but I think really Hades to me completely avoids all that. It is one, the rooms you fight in are all very small, very contained, and the same room patterns do repeat. The enemies themselves are all very basic, very simple, so it's not like a huge chore when you encounter a new enemy trying to learn their attack patterns, learn how to defeat them. In typically one encounter, you can figure out the best way to take down an enemy. Also, I think you said in terms of getting more powerful as you upgrade Zagreus and stuff. I have never so easily noticed myself getting better at a game than I have with Hades. Another plus I will say for the procedural generation is how fast it is. Like typically, if like to get through Tartarus in one run, taking rooms, whatever, at most, I think it takes you 20 minutes if you make it to the final boss, taking the longest possible route. So having all the runs be pretty short really helps with, I think, that frustration. Like the Persistence was a very slow-paced game, and I think that really hurt it, in just my opinion. But early on in the game, my first run through, I encountered a room with, I guess you could say, kind of two mini bosses. They're these guys, there's two of them, and they throw bombs, and that's all they do. And the first time I got just destroyed by these guys. And then when I like restarted and realized, oh, I don't keep my health upgrade that I had, I don't keep my boons, I don't keep any of that. I was prepared for the game to be really annoying. But by the third time I got to the second time I got to the boss guys, the bomb guys, I beat them both. By the third time I beat them, and every time since I fight them, I beat them without taking any damage. Which I love. The enemies have very basic, simple attack patterns that are easy to learn, easy to counter, and I very much appreciate that when it comes to playing a procedurally generated game.
How far have you got?
I have gotten through Tartarus, but I have
Have you
not
made it to the
made it.
Bone Hydra? No.
No, I have not. Yeah, this does break one of my rules I typically like to set for myself with indie big games to actually beat them before we talk about them. But Hades, it was way bigger than I thought, and
Yeah, it will take a while to beat yet.
And one thing I don't like, which I know this just from looking up, trophy guides, whatever. You have to escape 10 times to officially beat the game. I mean, maybe after I do it the first time, it becomes so easy that I'll just do it 10 times in a row. But again, that's 10 times in a row. And despite the fact that your runs can be pretty quick, that to me is a bit excessive. I feel like maybe five would have been
Yeah, but
fine.
even if you did it once with every weapon, that'd be like 8 right there.
I suppose you are correct. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I only have one complaint really about Hades in my time playing it so far, and that is, I had a similar complaint with Transistor. In Transistor, your sword talks, and he talks a lot. In Hades, Zagreus talks a lot, and honestly, I feel like it's a bit worse in Transistor because in Transistor, your sword is talking to you, like Red, the character you're playing as. So it is actually sort of a conversation, even though Red cannot speak. But in Hades, it's literally just Zagreus talking to himself. Or
Zagreus.
sorry,
And
Zagreus. Yeah.
everybody can hear him. Like all the gods can hear him.
Oh god, I didn't
That's
get
what I
that.
thought.
I didn't get that.
Or at least Hades.
Yeah, I'd say Hades probably can. And also there is a narrator and he can hear the narrator. So sometimes if you do something that
I think that's funny though.
causes the narrator to speak, Zagreus will respond. Again, I mean, sometimes it's funny. Like the first time it happened, I absolutely busted out laughing when the narrator said something and he was just like, I can hear you. I did laugh. But it's just he just always makes these comments. Not always. It doesn't happen like I would say as often as Transistor, but it's just something I feel like is unneeded. And yeah, that's it.
I hate you for hating Zagreus.
I don't hate Zagreus. I just wish he didn't talk as much. Like I love whenever he talks to another person and it's a conversation, but like the
Oh.
random comments
Yeah,
are
that's
what
fair.
gets
That's
me.
better.
Like I love anytime I go up against Meg. Anyway, that's Hades for me. I think it's great. I absolutely understand why it was up for Game of the Year 2020. Noah, would you pick Hades over The Last of Us Part 2 for Game of the Year 2020?
That's a really tough question. The Last of Us, no, The Last of Us is a better game. Like obviously, it's a better made game. It just has more, it's deeper. But the story of Hades is better.
I will agree with that. I mean, I'll also say Hades is infinitely more replayable.
That is true too. I'm not gonna touch The Last of Us Part 2 with a 10-foot pole.
Anyway, Noah, would you like to know what our next indie bit game is?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you right now. Abzu.
What the hell is that?
Abzu is, I hope to God it's the game I think it is. Basically, you play the entire game. Again, there are two games that came out kind of close to each other that are similar. I hope this is the one I'm thinking of, where you are basically entirely underwater. You're playing as a diver, and you're basically just kind of exploring these underwater environments, if I remember correctly. It was developed by, I think, a founder of that game company. That game company most famous for creating the game Journey. And then
That's a great game. That's
that
exciting.
so that founder or just developer from that game company after Journey was completed left, started his own indie studio, and Abzu was their first game. I really hope that information is correct because if not, I'm going to look like a jackass. I'll look it up after this recording so I can know to edit it out if I'm wrong.
Aptly timed. I will have
Anyway.
to remember to download it.
Yeah, it is short. I did look it up as well. Hypothetically,
I've got our next indie bit picked out. I just started it today, and it's
that's
a
nice.
great game.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I did look it up. According to howlongtobeat.com, the non-completionist Abzu takes about 2 hours to beat. So it's a short one.
Oh yeah, that's not too bad. I can beat that whenever.
Yep.
What did you say it was? Howlongtobeat.com?
Yeah, howlongtobeat.com. It's a great website where you can look up any game that has ever come out and you can
Sounds
see
like
how
a
long.
website that's not safe for kids.
It includes every video game ever made pretty much, as long as people like post about it. It tells you how long to beat it, just main story, how long to beat it if you're playing like main story and side objectives, and how long to beat it completionist, which getting all the achievements. Tells you all of those things. It's my go-to site for figuring out how long a game is.
That's really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just Google it and it tells me.
Fair.
It might come from that website. I don't know.
It might.
Anyway.
But yeah, yeah, that's that. Anyway, don't forget, new episodes every other Monday. Rate and subscribe. Tell us if you like our show, or tell us if you don't, and tell us why. Tell your friends and enemies about the podcast. And you can follow our Instagram, the Super Gamer Bros, for updates on everything we do. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Super Gamer Bros, one word, capital S, capital G, capital B, period at the end, where we upload videos every Friday. Our two most recent videos, actually, we started two new games. We uploaded part 1 of Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, where we started at the beginning, canonically, with Phantom Menace. And then part 1 of Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, where I take Noah on a journey through the incredible world of Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, two very exciting series. You know, we love Star Wars and Jaden loves Crash, so
Yeah.
we both get the best.
Yeah, we both get what we want. I love playing Crash, and Noah loves not playing Crash, so we both win. Anyway, yeah, we'll see you guys next game.
Bye.